Hey everybody, Sam from Modern.Conrail here, and I thought tonight would be a good night to kind of showcase a little bit of the neat features that come with RailPro and kind of start to dive into my process and how I decoder up my locomotives and get everything running the way I want it to. As you can see in front of me, I have a gutted out Athearn Genesis P42. Got the shell right here, beautiful locomotives. Absolutely killer in weight. I'm really excited to get this unit done. I've been holding off on it for a while, mostly to wait for these bad boys. Finally came in just last week. Figured now would be a good time to take care of this. Originally, it was going to be an easy process, but this has allowed me to do this video. At first, I was going to try and simply use the original board that Athearn provides. You can kind of tell on the back that one has not been touched yet. I wanted to use the original board, which you can then put in a 20-pin connector, 21-pin connector, and just connect it there. And then on the end here, just plug in the decoder. All would have been simple, and I've done that before for many Athearn units, except for the fact that these units, for some reason from the factory, their wiring is just all sort of wonked up. It isn't very I had already a couple wires that weren't actually connected to the board, and then I tested them, and it's just a messed up deal. So figured, you know what, we're gonna do this my way. I like kind of also hardwiring, because you get to choose what function's gonna be what. It's easy to function map and just set it up and customize it the way you want it done. But it is a learning curve. You have to understand what you're doing. It can be very daunting, but hopefully this video will kind of show you how to go through and do a successful hardwire process. So let's dive on in. The obvious first thing that you need to do is you have to remove all connections from the board. So for instance, all of these wires are connected to the actual board. Now, Athearn boards are really nice because, well, they're convenient, I should say, not nice, because they have these little black clips that hold everything in place. So they hold the wire in place, and all you have to do is snap it off and pull the wire out. You do that for all of them, and you can kind of see, let's see if I can get back here, kind of see what I'm talking about. This little wire is being held in by that little black clip, so all you'd have to do is pull it out and just pull the wire out. Scale trains and other, actually Athearn is the only one that does this. Scale trains and other manufacturers kind of use solder pads, so you would have to remove the solder and then remove all wires from the original board. Once you do this, and you can do exactly as I did, just pop the board off, discard the board, throw it at a wall. You can do whatever you want with it. Try and sell it, do whatever with them. You will not be needing it. So from there, now we've got our decoder. We're gonna go look at the hardwire harness, and we're gonna start kind of taking it step by step about how we're gonna do this. Alrighty, moving right along. I realized throughout the video I've been calling it a RailPro decoder. It is actually called a RailPro module. I don't know what the reason is why they're called that, but they are, so I'm going to try and refer to it as a module, but I'm sure I'll call it a decoder. So we got our module right here, and we've got our 9-pin harness. It gives you plenty of wire, or wires, that are going to be used in connecting all this crap to this. So, easiest little step, plug it in. Doesn't take much. Sometimes they're a little resistant, but there we go. Got it plugged in. Now we're probably going to start by putting the RailPro module, I'm going to try and balance it here, and we're going to put Kapton tape and secure it into position right there. And we will then continue to start moving on by attaching the truck leads and the motor leads. Alrighty, we are a little bit up higher so we can get a little bit of a better view, and I can kind of work around on what I need to be working on. So we're going to start by connecting the truck leads. There are now 4 for each locomotive, 2 on the right side of the trucks, 2 on the left, And we're going to start by connecting the left. So on the 9-pin decoder right here, the little wires that are coming from the decoder, you're going to want to connect the black wire to the left sides, to the left side leads. So I'm going to put it in time lapse, and you guys can watch me as I solder and solder the connections well. So let's go through and do it. I'm also going to solder the right side, and we'll go ahead and do that here in a bit. Alright, so this is a good little bit of a learning curve that even the greats mess up. I made a little bit of a boo-boo. I'm gonna have to go in and fix it. Your boy connected the wrong wire on here, which was very stupid. So, like all things, a little bit of a good learning lesson. Make sure that you have everything in the way that it needs to be. This wire should have been the one that was connected, and I picked the wrong wire foolishly. So now let's go back and fix it. Alrighty, so the leads are done. Let's see if I can get in a little bit closer. I do not have the best setup, and for a future video I will make sure to get things set up a little bit better, but because we're working on this now, I'd like to start on something. So we got one little bit. I'm still working on my soldering techniques, so I am no master by any means, but there's our second one. So now we're going to connect the truck leads, or to the motor leads, not the truck leads, we just did that. Connect the motor leads to there, and then we're halfway done. But the longest part is yet to come, and that is the LEDs. So let's take care of this, and we'll get back in just a minute. Alrighty, so on to the LEDs, but first I want to address one thing that I kind of made a mistake on, and I went back off camera and fixed. Make sure that whenever you do your connections that you have some sort of heat shrink tube. Let's see if I can get it into frame and get it to focus. It's probably not going to want to focus on me. That's unfortunate, but any sort of heat shrink tube that you can cut to size, like literally just snip the size, and can cover up the connecting point. As you can kind of see right here, you can kind of tell right there, I put the little black heat shrink tube right on top of it. You just wave the soldering iron right on it, and it'll shrink into place. But the reason why that's so important, especially on a unit like this, but most of the units nowadays for sure, the insides of the units are very tightly packed, and if I had left this open and it rubbed against the metal frame right here, or whatever this material is, die cast metal, whatever, it could cause a short circuit. I actually had that once happen with one of my Atlas-8s, and put the shell back on, and a wire pressed against the frame, totally short-circuited the unit. Didn't fry the decoder, but it did short-circuit the unit, wasn't allowing some of my light functions to work. I was amazed that the decoder did not fry, or the module didn't fry, but always make sure, it is one of the steps I overlook all the time, but make sure you have that heat shrink tube. You can kind of see I did it right here too. You don't have to cut off too much. I know that heat shrink, like especially some of these Athearn units, when they put it on, they put way too much on and it makes it really stiff. Put a little bit on, you'll thank yourself later, and it's just a good precautionary thing to do. So with that, without further ado, let's get into wiring up these LEDs. I'm only going to show one, and we're going to go from there. And one other thing I forgot to mention before I keep moving on is I did the positive wire, and you attach the positive wire to this 6-pin or the 9-pin blue wire. And so I have it underneath here, unfortunately, but you can kind of see right there is the connecting point, and it also goes back to the rear lights. Make sure you do this. If not, your LEDs will not work. Very, very important step. So I took care of that last night off camera, unfortunately, but it's the same procedure, as same soldering procedure as we did with everything else. Just solder the wires, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Same thing goes with the LEDs, but you're gonna need to make sure that you have these guys, resistors. So let's go ahead and go in and start doing one of the LEDs. Alrighty, so I've got a little magnifying glass. I don't need it, but it kind of helps you guys out. You guys can kind of see right there. Right there is the connection. I've got it hooked up on the alligator clips. So I'm gonna solder this real quickly. So this is the first little part to it, as you can tell. So this is the first side of the resistor. So we're gonna go ahead, just put a little not wanting to stay nice. Okay, there we go. So that is one done. So we'll do the same deal. We're gonna unclip these. So now we've got this part clipped, and we have, so I know you guys can't really see, my fingers are in the way. We have our heat shrink tube right there, just to prevent anything from going wrong. So we're going to connect it up to the alligator clips once again. We're going to line up the wire, and before I make a dumb mistake, which I'm already in the process of doing, don't forget, put it here, don't forget about your heat shrink. So I'm going to snip off a little bit. I'm going to unfortunately mess up my perfect alignment real quickly. When I tell y'all it is real easy to forget something, it is really easy. So make sure you're on top of your stuff so that you don't forget a step. So, let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit better. There we go. Oh, we were focusing on the wrong thing. There we go. That's much better. So it's really hard, unfortunately, because I picked the white wire, which, unfortunately for you guys, makes it really difficult. So I'm going to do my best. We're going to connect this final part. I got a little too much solder on it. I'll wipe some of that off with the solder tip cleaner, which that is incredibly handy to have. I cannot explain how nice it is to be able to have a solder cleaner. I used to not work with one, and it was incredibly foolish. I learned my lesson the hard way, one of my very first hardwire installs, and I did not have all the right proper materials. So do your research. I'll try and see if I can maybe create some list. I don't think this actually, it's not the greatest connection, but I think it's holding in place, but I'm gonna mess around with it. So I'm gonna do this off camera because I'm gonna mess around with it and I'm not gonna waste y'all's time. So we'll be back in just a second. Alrighty, that's a much cleaner connection. I like that look better. You want to be careful to make sure. Sometimes solder can be funny and it can kind of flare up. You kind of see a little bit right there. Too much flare up though, like that, and it makes it really difficult to slide the heat shrink over it. There we go. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate how the heat shrink works. Literally just like it says in the name, heat shrink. So literally just touch the soldering iron to the heat or to the shrink and just kind of rub it gently. And there you go. And it's not going to move. And I'll do it for the other side too. Oh, my wire is getting stuck. Sorry, y'all. That is as simple as it gets with terms of how to wire up the LEDs. So there you have it. I'm going to move this out of the way. Kind of get a little bit of a better look. You can see that white wire right there. You can for these, so the light functions are green, purple, yellow, white. And on the extra 6-pin, which goes on the back right here, the green and purple are the extra light functions. Now, RailPro is in the process, hopefully, from what I've recently heard and when I spoke to Tim, they are hopefully in the process of designing a 21-pin module. And so that will alleviate a lot of this. So very excited for the prospect of seeing possibly 21 pins someday so that we won't have to do these hardwires. But until then, it's a pretty good skill to learn anyways. Hardwiring has been a thing that people have done for many years, especially with the old Athearn blue boxes. Thank goodness with these, you don't have to isolate the motor or anything like that because there's nothing, it's not hitting the frame or anything, so it's already isolated, so you don't have to touch any of that. But so that's that. So we're going to now, I'm going to do a time lapse of me working on the rest of the lights. Either I'm going to do a time lapse or I'm just going to come back to it and I'll show you guys the finished result. Alrighty, so I did not do a time lapse, unfortunately. I thought I was going to, but ran into an issue that I kind of forgot about, that I remember hearing all about in May, and that was with the ditch lights. If I can angle it properly, it's really difficult to tell, but Athearn only, for their DCC models, there was some issue with quality control, and they only set the ditch lights to one function. Well, all of these P42s had flashing ditch lights, so that could not work with them being wired to one function. So I didn't take any pictures or much of the process. I took a couple pictures and I can maybe show, but basically you can kind of see there's a wire in there, and I exposed some of the LED or the lead, the copper wire in there, soldered another wire lead, and split the line on the board so that it would create a separate function. Someone in the Amtrak Modelers Facebook group figured that out, and big thanks to Jacob Klatt, 18 pounds on Instagram. He's a great guy. He helped me get the information so I could work on this tonight, so thanks to him. I appreciate you, my friend. So moving right along though, I got all the lights to work. Got everything all pieced up, patched up together. Just need to, obviously you can see I need to put the shrink wrap on for some here, but I can do that in a minute. And now the next step is figuring out about the speakers. I didn't take video of this because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I like personally to check after each connection, go put the unit on the track and make sure that the light works or that it's wired up correctly. You should be able to tell because once you check on the RailPro remote and hit the function, and if it doesn't light up, that means you done messed up. And if it lights up, then congratulations, you did it right. So I usually like to check just as a fail-safe to make sure that I'm doing everything properly. So that's just me. That's just how I like to do things. I think it makes things a little bit better personally, but that's me, and other people might have different ways of how they do things. So we're gonna move along to the speakers. I might time-lapse this portion, but so with the speakers, you have to wire them parallel since we've got two speakers. I don't have a diagram showing how that works, but it's pretty self-explanatory. If you Google it, it comes up pretty well, but you're going to want to wire these parallel to each other. I cannot remember for the life of me what the other way is, but remember to do it parallel. So with that being said, let's get these wired up, get these dual speakers in, and we'll try and get everything patched up. And then the next step will be to download the horn file and the prime mover, which that takes some good amount of time, but we'll take care of it, and we'll kind of do maybe a little bit of a time lapse while that works, and we'll go from there. So let's get these speakers taken care of. Alrighty, well, I could not do a time lapse. I ran into a little bit of an issue, a couple things that I had to fix with the board and with, again, the speakers wired up, but I have the speakers wired up and now everything is ready to go. A couple things I did. The shell does not seem to sit properly if you don't cut the little clips that hold the original Athearn board off. So I just snipped those off with a pair of little Xeron cutters. Come off pretty easily. And once that's done, we can slide our shell back on. There we go. Put the screws back in on the bottom. And we'll put the coupler pockets in. We will be all nice and set. So let's go give it a look. Alrighty, with the unit put back together, we're now ready to give it a listen. Last night I decided off camera that I put in the prime mover and put in the custom K5LA that I have created myself. It's based off a CSX horn. It's not exactly prototypical, but for the time being it's a close enough horn that sounds pretty darn good. And it'll be a good placeholder until I get around to making a authentic Amtrak K5LA. But in the meantime, let's give it a listen. Alright everyone, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully this shed some light and understanding on what RailPro is, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. I will try to answer as many as I can. I will try to do a couple more videos kind of showcasing RailPro, such as like the load share technology feature and the fact that you can consist any sort of locomotives in practically 15 seconds. I will try to go through and create a couple more videos so you guys can really truly fully understand the incredibleness that RailPro is. So with that, I'll leave you guys off with this, and I hope you guys have a great, wonderful day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.